This one cracked me up. So FEMA is an incredibly vital department in the federal government. They provide incredibly vital resources to people in the immediate aftermath of a natural disaster. When a hurricane or a flood or a tornado or an avalanche or a wildfire or something of that nature hits, FEMA is the one that gets in there and helps people on the ground initially first. And now Trump wants to do away with FEMA, so naturally all of his cult followers also want to do away with FEMA. And they're coming up with numerous arguments as to why we should do away with FEMA. This person says, tell me you never heard of Katrina without telling me. Yeah, I've heard of Katrina. For those of you who don't know what Katrina is the hurricane that hit New Orleans that ultimately caused the breach of the levees, which caused the flooding of New Orleans, which caused people to rush to the Superdome where the New Orleans Saints play for salvation. And it took FEMA 5 days to get water to the people in the Superdome. And this person is essentially saying that that's proof that we need to get rid of FEMA. Here's your problem. While FEMA is an incredibly vital and necessary organization, it can be mismanaged like any other organization can be mismanaged. Do you remember who was in charge of FEMA during Katrina? It was a gentleman by the last name of Brown. Do you remember when George Bush was in New Orleans and he had his FEMA director standing next to him in the face of this disastrous response to Katrina, and he said, "You're doing a heck of a job, Brownie." That famous line, "You're doing a heck of a job, Brownie." You remember that? Do you know what that gentleman's job was before he was the head of FEMA? Mr. Brown, the guy who ran FEMA under George Bush's administration? He ran horse shows. He ran equestrian shows. Now, I'm going to paraphrase Lewis Black here when I say I don't know what qualifications go into being able to run a horse show other than the ability to say, next. But that was his job. He ran horse shows, and then Bush put him in charge of FEMA. Of course FEMA was mismanaged at that point in time. The leadership of FEMA had no fucking clue what they were doing. If you put me in charge of FEMA today, chances are some shit's going to get fucked up. Why? I don't know how to run an emergency management organization. I don't have the experience. I don't have the knowledge. I don't have the skill set to say, oh, here's what needs to happen. I would literally be learning on the job, like Brownie was. So yeah, Katrina is an example of how piss-poor leadership within FEMA can cause FEMA to be an ineffective organization. But for every Katrina that you can point out, I can point out dozens of instances of FEMA stepping up to the plate and being handled correctly. I can't believe that you guys would use your own party's inability to manage emergency issues as a reason to no longer manage emergency issues.